Sorry, we are just a few minutes late. Ran into some technical difficulties with this streaming software and Facebook, but I'll figure it out going forward. In the meantime, we thought it was important to dive into this particular topic. Reason being, let me drop this here. Yeah, the reason being is that there's a lot of misinformation going around what CRT is, what CRT isn't. A lot of right-wing politicians have ran with it because it's a great talking point to them anyway. You know, to those who actually know what it is, it's not really a good talking point, but a lot of people, unfortunately, the masses have no clue. And that has been around for a while, but now all of a sudden it's become a political punching bag. So that then you have right-wing evangelical preachers running with it, and that's even worse because now they're spreading the propaganda in the church, and we already have all kind of problems in the church. I mean, you can name it, and even up to and including racial racial divisions and all kind of other divisions. And for them to run with this is just adding more fuel to the fire. So I said all that to say this is the reason why Brother Matthew Jackson was supposed to be with us tonight. He's still out of town dealing with some family business and issues, so he may not be available. Brother Charles Johnson has volunteered to sit in for him, and he's definitely knowledgeable on church business.
Yes, indeed.
And I'm assuming he's looked into CRT some as well. And
yes, indeed.
Brother Kevin said he's been studying CRT ever since this. How long you been studying it, Kevin?
For a few years, man. Before it blew up.
Before the controversy started. Okay.
Yeah, I got interested in it a few years ago, so I'm up on it.
Yep. Okay, great. And for myself, I have nominal knowledge of it. I've been reading and trying to study as much as I can, but I just wanted to allow some folk who actually are in the know to be able to speak on it, and also have a video clip that Brother Matthew Jackson and the other brother did. They played, which was really good. But I have a video clip from BNC News, and I hope we don't get in trouble for playing this, but I don't think they'll mind if we play a little bit of it. But I want to play some of this. Let me get to it here. Let's see it. CRT.
I already know what you gonna play.
Huh?
Oh no, I think I'm familiar with what you might be getting ready to play.
Yeah. Utah State's hang on a second. Let me get this thing up. Okay. Yeah, Utah State Representative Steve Christensen went on with on BNC Black News Channel to explain why they were preemptively making laws to combat CRT, which is not even being taught in their school. And some of his explanations are just crazy. But I just want to play a little bit of it. We're not going to listen to the whole thing.
Sure.
Let me do this here.
Welcome back to Black News Tonight. The state of Utah might soon join the list of states banning the teaching of critical race theory in schools. State Representative Steve Christensen has introduced a House resolution on critical race theory in public education. The resolution 901 argues that some concepts contained in critical race theory degrade important societal values, and it proposes that no curriculum in the state include concepts that promote one race is inherently superior or inferior to another race, or that an individual's moral character is determined by race. Representative Christensen says that while preparing the resolution, he based his findings on his many discussions with concerned parents.
I've talked with many parents. Yep. How many examples would you want to see for you to believe that this is something that's fairly pervasive?
You're a data guy. Is anecdote fact?
Obviously, it's not occurring in every classroom in the state of Utah.
But a recent
Now, we'll stop there for now. We can discuss some more later.
That
But
was odd, but
yeah,
Very odd.
right off the bat, it's like,
Right.
well, there's a few parents here and there. I think he said 100 parents out of a whole state.
I mean, and they're only complaining because they saw something on Fox News.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I
you
mean-
go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Yeah, it's just the hysteria that is stoked by the right wing on these cultural war issues. Nothing policy related, nothing substantiated, nothing of substance at all. Pure conjecture, pure, crying wolf. And they do this to agitate their base. And this is especially true in election years or in upcoming elections, that they want to agitate their base to get them out to the polls, to increase their turnout, because they struggle with turnout. Whenever you have great turnout in an election, we saw what happened in 2020. The Republicans tend to lose because they took that Dixie suicide pill, as I call it. They took that Dixie suicide pill in the late 60s, throughout the 70s, when they courted the Dixie vote into the Republican Party. And those folks eventually become what they call the base of the Republican Party today. Very pro-Confederate, very racist.
Could you repeat that again? Confederate. Could you repeat that
they're
again?
very pro-Confederate. They're the folks that you see protesting the taking down of Confederate statues, standing up for the Confederate flag. We saw their hatred and intolerance on display in Charlottesville. President Trump's infamous "good people on both sides" statement, because he didn't want to condemn them because he knows that those folks vote for him. And the Republicans depend on the Dixie vote being agitated about something. It was the war on Christmas. Then it was Black Lives Matter.
Mr. Grinch.
And the protesting. Look at what they're doing to our cities. And now it's critical race theory, just the latest boogeyman to stoke the Dixie vote to the polls.
That's right.
And it's so transparent at this point that to deny it is to be in the denial of reality itself.
When you say, and we're going to get to Kevin here in a second, but I would want to ask you, why would anyone that claims to purport to be, and I can't read the horse, but why would anyone who claims to be a believer in Jesus Christ and studies the Bible would even defend the Confederacy?
Oh, it's easy, because they interpret the characters in the Bible as being like them.
Okay.
Jesus is white. Moses is white.
I wasn't expecting that answer, but you're right.
The 12 disciples are white. They think that defending the Bible is defending whiteness. Their Christianity, or their perverted version of Christianity, is filtered through the lens of whiteness, and it always has been. So, this is their bottom line. It boils down to their race is superior. They are God's people. America was the promised land. They look at themselves as, they are the descendants of the great founders of this republic. Anything that threatens whiteness or threatens to analyze it critically, like critical race theory has done, they look at that as an attack. They look at that as the enemy. They look at that as the devil. And so that's how they categorize it. white evangelicals have always been like this. By
Well, that's true
I
because
mean,
that's how slavery survived, right?
that's how slavery survived
No,
and
Control.
thrived. Is how they could lynch black people from trees on Saturday night and pop up in church on Sunday morning singing hymns, and they thought that there was nothing wrong with what they were doing because their Christianity, I call it the white Jesus Christianity. But the white Jesus Christianity, it's been filtered through that lens of white superiority.
That Jesus is a conqueror.
Well, but I mean, and you go all the way back to Constantine in 325 AD when he saw allegedly the sign of the cross upon the sun, which he said was the sign of Apollo, but which was definitely reinterpreted to be that, hey, Christ is with the emperor and the merger of church and state. So the superiority of the Roman Empire upon the rest of the world, which they redubbed the Holy Roman Empire. And, the popes have had emperors and kings in their pockets since the very beginning. And so it has matriculated down to today, where we see white nationalism, pro-Americanism, all interpreted through the lens of whiteness.
And they all
evangelicals.
Well, I was gonna say they all trump the Bible too.
But
absolutely.
But even on the other side of that, your question about the Confederacy. So if we're going back to the Civil War.
Hey, before you start, Brother Kevin, and please, whatever you do, please explain what CRT is and what CRT is not.
Sure. Okay. So I wanted to kind of dovetail and sort of add to what Charles was discussing about, because your question was dealing with the defense of the Confederacy. Well, even the people on the other side of that maybe they're not outright defending the Confederacy, but they still use the Confederacy, and pretty much the Civil War at large as an opportunity to center on whiteness, right? So in other words, a popular statements that you hear, people in the dominant society make when you question them, ask them certain questions about the Civil War, the past. They'll say, well, we fought a civil war to end slavery. They'll say, well, thousands of white people died to free black people. So now, well, I'm not even gonna go down that road, but
I think you should go down that road.
These statements are designed.
Drive on down that road.
These type of statements again is reflective of their of centering on whiteness, is the white savior. So there's the white savior card that we saved white people, and to bring it forward to today when we talk about CRT and the discussion of the past, of history. They say, well, we saved y'all, so why do we have to go back and talk about that? That's really what they're fussing about. They're complaining about with this. They're using critical race theory as an opportunity to make the same argument that they've always made. That why we have to keep talking about that? We saved y'all.
See. In other words, boy, take what we give you and be satisfied, because we ain't had to give you nothing. I'm just say it how they think it, because it's exactly they feel entitled to treat us this way. And the reason why they feel entitled to treat us this way is because of white nationalism. America's a white country created for white people by white people. We are in their country. You listen to these, Hicks, hillbillies, rednecks on all these videos when they're talking to these minorities, be they Asian, Hispanic, or Black. They're always telling somebody to leave their country. You don't like it here, you can leave.
And it's like your history doesn't matter.
Hey, Kevin, you know, Brother Charles got he in trouble again, right?
Yeah, I've committed thought crimes against Dixie.
So whether you defending the Confederacy or whether you are defending Americanism, you're not defending the Confederacy, but you saying, we saved y'all. Whichever side of the coin you're on, it still ends up. The argument still is your history doesn't matter. It's what we say about history and what counts and what's important in history is what we say, and it's not what you say. We don't care about what you say.
Right. And let me say something real quick too. I just want the audience to know that we're all believers in Jesus Christ.
Yes.
So we've all studied church history, American history. Black history is American history, so I don't have to say Black history. We've studied American history.
We can get into credentials, but we don't need to do all that. I mean,
we built this country.
We know some stuff.
And so basically what I'm driving at is I wanted a panel of believers to fight to speak on the church and evangelicals running amok with CRT. And that's the reason why I didn't get some of my other friends on. They cool and they know CRT, but I wanted some believers in Christ to address this issue as well. So
I'm ready to get into that whenever. Whenever you'd like me to.
But if Salah want to jump on her later on, he sure can.
What we've actually been doing so far is very much CRT.
Absolutely.
We're critically analyzing policy and law. When you talk about the Civil War, we're talking about policy and law.
That's right.
When we talk about the Fugitive Slave Act, that's law. When we talk about the expansion of slavery into the new states as America expanded westward, that's policy. When we talked about the secession declarations, that's policy. When we talk about Lincoln saying, hey, y'all can't leave, that's policy. And all of it can be analyzed through the prism of race, because this was all about slavery, the legal enslavement of the Black race, generationally denying the accumulation of wealth to maintain white advantage. This is policy and this is law. That's what critical race theory is. It is a critical analysis of policy and law. It has nothing to do with high school civics. It has nothing to do with a U.S. history class in your 10th grade high school. It has nothing to do with any of that. Critical race theory began in law schools. It began as something called critical legal theory. These brothers and sisters were analyzing laws and policy and how they specifically affected, or I would say disaffected, Black people in America. In a nutshell, that's what critical race theory is. So we can't go through and fall into the boogeyman traps about, they think anything is critical race theory. These folks think Martin Luther King's speech is critical race theory. They think talking about Malcolm X is critical race theory. They think reading the secession declarations is critical race theory. They think basically anything that is related to race and telling the truth about America's racist history and the racism embedded in American institutions. They think all of it's critical race theory, which leads us to a sinister agenda, because their agenda is very sinister. They're doing this on purpose. The people that are spearheading this, not the regular yahoos and idiots that are on social media or even on, Fox News. I mean, they're just not very intelligent people. But the people that are really pushing this, really behind it, they know that all this stuff is not critical race theory.
I got a tweet.
They're
I'm gonna
doing
show
this
you
on purpose. And
I
I know exactly the tape
it.
you're talking about, because the guy admitted it.
The guy
admitted it on tape. They know all the stuff in critical race theory. They're using it to expand it to include any discussion about race that white folks don't like.
That's right.
To shut it down. Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
To shut it down. It's a propaganda tactic.
Absolutely. Excuse me, Brother Charles has done it again. He broke it down. So even the fifth grader can understand it. So it's really no need for me, Jay, to really explain it, because Charles broke it down.
Right.
I will, but
I'll just
touch on a couple of things.
I was going to say, you can explain what is not.
Okay.
Because,
absolutely. So I got this little PowerPoint. So Charles brilliantly explained, what critical race theory is. Without getting too fancy, it is very simply, it's a legal research framework. It's a legal research tool. It's also a law class, right? And it was developed in the 70s. So the key figure in the development of critical race theory is a man named Professor Derek Bell, the late Professor Derek Bell. So he wrote this book in the 70s, 73, called Race, Law, and I can't remember the name of the book right now, but it's like a rare legal book. But he I guess after a little bit afterwards, there were other people that sort of worked alongside him, and also after he died, that kind of carried on the torch and kind of developed the field. So it's actually not only is it a type of a legal research framework or legal research tool, not only is it a law class, but it is also a field of study, right? It's a legitimate field of study. So these people that I have listed here, these are known as the foundational thinkers in critical race theory, right? And it's interesting because one of the things about this whole critical race theory debate that in terms of the agenda, Charles and Jay, is I describe the agenda as being serving, generally to serve a political. It's a political agenda that they're attempting to serve, to carry out. But it is done in three ways. It's basically to scare white people and demonize black people. Those are kind of two of the essential things that are done in order to help advance the political agenda that they're seeking to advance. And in terms of demonizing black people, a lot of the scare tactics with a lot of things that they are claiming that critical race theory supposedly teaches, they're kind of really kind of low-key trying to blame black people for a lot of these concepts. And a lot of this stuff that they're coming up with doesn't have anything to do with critical race theory, number one. And number two, a lot of the stuff that they're complaining about comes from white people. But that, for example, there's a Robin DiAngelo. She wrote this book called what's the name of that book she wrote? Robin DiAngelo. It will come to me in a moment, but she wrote this book and it's being used as is being referred to as critical race theory. A lot of these concepts coming from her book, but she is not a critical race theorist. Right. Ibram X. Kendi is another author. He's a historian. He's being called a critical race theorist, but he has nothing to do with critical race theory. These people that I have listed here, Derek Bell, Alan Freeman, Kimberly Crenshaw, actually all of these people are still alive except Derek Bell. It's a rainbow of people who are in this field. There's the main point that I want to make. It's not
just black people.
Just black people. There's
Right.
white people, Asian people, Latino people. It's people not even in this country that are, you know, participating in this work. But most certainly, two of the main people in terms of the names that you will hear in terms of, I guess the main scholars in critical race theory today is Kimberly Crenshaw is one, and Richard Delgado is another. So those two are some big names.
Crenshaw actually coined the term critical race theory.
Right, she actually did.
Kimberly Crenshaw.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
and she's
Crenshaw,
also,
Delgado,
she
and
also
Bell
coined the term called intersectionality,
yes.
which is sort of related to critical race theory.
Yes, because that's where the race and the law intersect.
Right,
and
absolutely.
You know, discrimination and oppression of black people grows from that intersection.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's important that people, if you want to learn, really understand critical race theory, it's kind of complicated. It's a complicated subject. I mean, I'm a relatively intelligent guy, and I have trouble. You know, you can get into the weeds and get lost in this stuff if you really want to. I don't. But these are the people that you want to read them because they're in the field. These are the people that have basically kind of like created the field. So their ideas are important.
Right.
There are people out here who are critiquing critical race theory, who are saying critical race theory says this, it says that, and they have never read anything that these people have written. Right. They are relying on, position papers from think tanks or what some pastor said on a radio show, or they're relying on second, third. Yeah, what somebody said on Fox News.
Yeah,
right.
Sean Hannity, Ben Shapiro.
Absolutely, we all learned in school, or if you went to college, when you want to do research, you want to consider your firsthand, your primary sources. Correct. So if you want to understand what critical race theory is, it's just logical that you would consult the writings or the people themselves who are in the field. They know what they meant when they wrote this stuff. You don't have to talk to somebody second or third hand when you can just read what these people said. So those are some names for you. And in terms of the basic tenets, I don't really want to get into all that. You can kind of read, but it's important to understand that there is
share your sources, brother, if you haven't done so already.
Sources on. All right. So
I know you named Derek Bell and some other folk.
Right. So okay. These sources: Derek Bell, Alan Freeman, Kimberly Crenshaw, Richard Delgado, Cheryl Harris, Charles Lawrence III, Mari Matsuda, and Patricia Williams. Now, this is a book I'm holding up. It's probably showing up backwards right now. I can probably pull it up for you, but it's called Critical Race Theory, the Key Writings That Formed the Movement, right? So, and I'll probably put this book on the screen in a minute, but this is sort of like a little reader. So this is
that'd be good for people to check out that
so
are
this
interested
is
in learning,
for people who
learning
are like,
more about it.
Who are like really, really interested. If you just kind of want to just get a basic understanding of it, I recommend, this is me personally, I recommend the Wikipedia article on critical race theory. A lot of people have issues with Wikipedia. I don't, because Wikipedia has come a long way, and the real power of a Wikipedia article is they have citations, so you don't have to go by what's written in the text.
You
of
can
the
actually
page.
follow the
citations. The references in the bottom. Look at the citations. So if you go to that critical race theory article on Wikipedia, there's plenty of references and bibliography sources on there that you can read. But this is I found that this particular book was good for me this and the Wikipedia article when I first started. And then of course, there are YouTube videos where you can look up these scholars, and they do all kinds of presentations and all kinds of talks on this subject matter.
So can we touch and transition a little bit? I mean, I know you guys can share whatever you want, but I want to, that dude right there, Vody.
Yes. Vody.
How did he end up writing this book? And you explain it to me. I would like you explain it to the audience for me, please.
So I can tell you what my
Theory is.
My theory.
Yeah.
So I want to start with let me see if I can bring this up over here. I want to show you a tweet, right? So let me go here.
Now, Vody, and there's an interview. By the way, there's an interview Vody did where he went because the book is out, and they come to find out that some of the stuff in the book is just not accurate. And so now Vody is trying to backtrack, and he did an interview with some guy. I can't remember the name of it, but it was just recently where he was saying, this, that, and the other. But it contradicts the sermon that he preached.
Right.
So he's either lying or he's forgot what he preached.
So for a minute, so let me jump. So let me talk very quickly about this wokeness. There's a war on wokeness right now, right? So this is basically it's an extension of the ongoing culture wars in America, right? So wokeness is a term. It's like the umbrella term that conservatives use to basically they're attacking things under this umbrella, and things that they put under this umbrella include like social justice. What is it? James Cone. What was that? The James Cone liberation.
That would be black liberation
theology.
theology.
Liberation theology.
The black liberation theology.
Anything having to do with liberalism that they claim has to do with liberalism. Anything that has to do with any form of black liberation, whether it be civil rights or whether it be, Black Lives Matter, or whether it be any type of liberation or civil rights movement of any era. And then, critical race theory. So all of these different movements, activities, concepts, even the concept of white privilege, right? Which a white man named Theodore W. Allen actually coined that term, but I'm not even going there. You can just look it up. But they're all under this umbrella term called wokeness. So there's a war against wokeness that kind of has been ongoing for several years. It's even, we can even take it back to when Kaepernick took a knee, right? So this has been an ongoing. So even before Black Lives Matter, this has been an ongoing, culture war, feature of the culture war or phase of the culture war. Right. So, so when we talk about the culture wars, there are conservative, ultra conservative, or conservative think tanks, conservative institutions that are involved in sort of keeping this culture war going. And so some of the key organizations are organizations like the Heritage Foundation, which they're like right at the top. So Heritage Foundation, another organization called the Manhattan Institute, another one called City Journal, which is it's actual a journal publication. Turning Point USA, which is what Candace Owens used to work for this organization. That's basically, they put her on the map. Charlie Kirk right now. Yeah. And then alongside
PragerU.
So that's PragerU. So that's strictly.
Can't forget about Prager, the fake U.
Absolutely.
Because it's not a real university. It's just a fake U.
Right. So that's the strictly political arm of this of the war against wokeness. And then you have this religious element.
I'm sorry, you got Charlie Kirk and Candace in that group. Did you get the other guy that I forgot his name now? Oh man.
Who you talking about? Is that one of the black ventriloquist dummies?
No, he's a white guy. He has a show. His voice is so annoying.
Tucker Carlson?
No. He's
you talking about Ben Shapiro?
Yeah, Ben Shapiro.
Oh yeah.
Daily
Shapiro.
That's how he talks.
Absolutely.
They make you want to
He talks like this.
make you want to reach.
He talks like this.
want to reach to the
Right.
screen and just choke them, you know.
Right. Then you got a religious arm, which is like a contingent of conservative pastors. The Southern Baptist Convention or some
Right.
contingent of those pastors are going to be in that. Then Vodi Bakum, and that's what kind of like brings Vodi Bakum into the fold, because the face of the movement, the front lines, is mainly white people, mainly
It's all
white
white,
males,
yeah.
right? But as we know, this is an old tactic, when going back to slavery, probably before that, is that when you want to when a dominant society, so they want to advance a certain agenda, right, and they don't want to be perceived as racist, right? Then they have to get a black person to be the face of their agenda, right?
That's right. They got to get some black ventriloquist dummies.
Right. They got to get a ventriloquist dummy, or they got to find one person. They got to find somebody. So it's people like what's his name, Doctor what's his name,
Ben Carson.
They're gonna get a Ben Carson, or like if it's have something to do with scholarship, they're gonna get Doctor. What's his name? What is his name?
hold on.
My mind going blank.
I know all of them. Thomas Sowell.
Yeah, that's him. Thomas Sowell. They're gonna
I know all of them.
They're gonna cite Thomas Sowell. They're gonna put him up there as if he's the smartest Negro in America on any subject. It don't matter what you're talking about.
Well, but he is, Brother Kevin, because he's their Negro. See, their Negroes are the best Negroes.
Right.
Always have been. In fact, they kind of don't even look at their Negroes like other Negroes.
Right.
Their Negroes are special.
That's right.
They're not like one of them.
They got superpowers.
Well, not one of them, but more like a pet. That's why I call them pets. This is why I get in trouble, because I got all kind of names for all these folks. Ventriloquist dummies, pets. They do the things that they do for pats on the head, for treats. They give them little treats.
Right.
And that's how they roll. They've always rolled like that.
Right. So when we talk about Vodi Bakum, right? That's where he comes in, because he was recruited by the Heritage Foundation. Yes. We know this. I don't have time to get into all the details, but he was recruited by the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation is a think tank, conservative think tank. They're the one, they send him around the country to do these different talks. When you see him on churches, that he's the guy. He's their guy. He's written a book called Fault Lines, which talks about critical race theory. My theory, I personally believe that he was paid, that they backed him, that the Heritage Foundation, some organization backed him to write that book.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Which is why it's so plagiarized.
Right. So you got
those are not his thoughts.
Right. So you got him on the religious side. We're gonna come back to Vodi, but I want to talk about this. There's a tweet I'm showing you right here. This guy, his name is Christopher Rufo, right?
Right.
He works for the conservative think tank that I mentioned a moment ago called the Manhattan Institute, right? He's the reason why critical race theory has been in the news, why all of these people are going to these school board meetings, why Donald Trump mentioned it last year. He is the guy who almost single-handedly created the groundswell and this rage and this hysteria about critical race theory in the media. That was his project at the Manhattan Institute. I've been following this guy for a while. This tweet, he says, I actually can't believe he still has this tweet up.
I thought it would have been deleted by now.
He put this tweet up in March, right? This was last year. He said, the goal is to have the public read something crazy in the newspaper and immediately think critical race theory.
Right.
We have decodified the term. Basically, they co-opted it. And we'll recodify it to annex the entire range of cultural constructions that are unpopular with Americans.
And by Americans, he means white people.
Right. Now let me read this one. This is what the one he said right before that. He said, "We have successfully frozen their brand, critical race theory, into the public conversation and are steadily driving up negative perceptions." Again, that's an active project that he was working on.
This is the nature of propaganda, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly. We will eventually turn it toxic. Right. He's saying this in March of last year. I'm sorry, March of this year, a few months ago.
Right, March of this year.
Right. As we put all of the various cultural insanities under that brand category.
There you go.
Now, what he's calling various cultural insanities are just all the things that they don't like. Remember earlier when I was talking about social justice?
Right.
What else did I say? I said social justice, liberation,
civil
theology,
rights movement,
any type of freedom movement, any type of freedom,
voting rights,
voting rights. Talking about it in the church.
Right. It's all
anything,
CRT.
Yeah, anything we just gonna put that under anything black.
Right.
Anything that's too black, we're gonna call it critical race theory.
That's
basically what he is admitting to in this tweet. So you got that. That's on the political side, and then you got to have some preachers to deal with it on the evangelical side. Because the evangelicals, they're still our base.
Right.
Still, when I say our, I'm talking about the conservative political base.
Right.
One of the strongest contingents, if not the strongest contingent, right, is the evangelicals. So they got to get the preachers involved. And I was actually, I think I mentioned this to you all. There was a conference that I attended back in, when was this? Back in June. It was called the Wokeness and the Gospel. This was
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, this was a conference I attended in Denton, Texas. And I attended this conference because I wanted to, because at that point, I heard a few preachers here and there, and I saw this guy. I'm gonna scroll down. This guy named Owen Strawn. That's how you pronounce his name.
Okay.
I was seeing his name popping up on stuff. I was like, who is this guy? He must be the new kid on the block. I'm trying to figure out who this guy is. And he's like this with Bodie Baucham. He idolizes Bodie Baucham. I could bring up some pictures and stuff where he just going gushing all about Bodie Baucham. But at this conference, it was about 2,000, almost 2,000 people at this conference. It was over a 2-day period. And I attended because I wanted to observe. I was really interested in where this debate was going.
Right.
And I wanted to know what the evangelicals were up to, because I knew that this conference I knew something it was going down at this conference.
Yeah, they're always up to something.
So I attended this conference, 2-day period. I heard all the speakers. Just a few important things about it. Number one is it was essentially an indoctrination session.
Right.
Because what they did was they had these speakers and they had these breakout sessions with speakers in these breakout sessions, all talking about critical race theory. There was no opportunity to ask questions. They did not provide any. They did not open the floor up for discussion or any questions.
Of course,
you're talking about a 2-day conference, so it was pure indoctrination. This guy right here, this guy Owen Strawn, he did most of the talking. So it was like a in the main sanctuary, he would do the main talking, and then they have a breakout session where these other people would give talks on. This brother right here, Daryl Harrison, he gave the breakout session on what is CRT. It was very interesting because for the most part, it was kind of accurate, but he put some spin on there it was really interesting.
Well,
While I was there,
I'm sure that
but
that spin
yeah,
has something to do with turning it into Marxism, because
yeah,
that's
yeah,
because they
yeah,
always play that boogeyman. I've been
yeah.
debating with several Christian preachers all over social media about trying to make CRT into Marxism,
Right,
because that's how they demonize it, because
right.
they want to make it anti-American.
And that's exactly what he did. That's
Right, of
exactly.
course.
Now
It's
we're in a
what they do is very predictable, because they try to do the same thing to Dr. King.
right,
And it's
exactly.
just a shame when you see black preachers involved in the hackery.
Right.
It's just very disgusting to me, because these are the same tricks that they played against Dr. Martin Luther King.
Right.
And now here we have, black people regurgitating those same attacks.
They actually quoted Dr. King at this conference, which it was. I thought it was hilarious. I'm sitting here. I'm like, did they just quote Dr. King?
Oh, I'm sure it was the content of character line.
Yes, they quoted that.
Yeah, because that's the one that they always take out of context.
Right, absolutely. So it was, so on one hand, they want to say Dr. King was a communist.
Right.
They call it, matter of fact, there's a video.
A Marxist.
There is a video on YouTube of Vodi Bakum where he's on a panel discussion with R.C. Sproul and a few other preachers. And they ask him a question about Dr. King. Vodi Bakum says that Dr. King was a Marxist.
Wow.
Which is a total lie, because Dr. King preached against Marxism and communism. He's on record. He wrote and preached against Marxism and communism.
Yeah, but they don't.
But there are people that still call him a Marxist.
I mean, but that's because of the propaganda at the time. America pretends like it loves Dr. King at certain times during the year, but Dr. King's disapproval rating was pushing 80% by the time that he died in 1968. He was the most unpopular man in America when he got assassinated. But furthermore, the whole content of character thing, every time some low IQ evangelical trots out judged by the content of character, I'm like, hey, tell me one other thing and I Have a Dream that was addressed. And then I always get the crickets. Give me another quote from the speech. Have you ever read the speech? Have you ever read Dr. King's book? Oh, you didn't know he actually wrote a book. Oh, okay. Well, you never read his book. But you have never even listened to the entire I Have a Dream speech, because dealing with the I Have a Dream speech, Dr. King addressed police brutality. He addressed reparations. He addressed systemic racism, and he said content of character. But he was talking about the government not judging us in law and policy on the color of our skin.
That's right.
That's what he was talking about.
That's right.
But see, they love taking Dr. King out of context, just like they take the scriptures out of context. This is the shell game that they have always played ever since we were slaves with their white Jesus Christianity, and they still try to play. I saw you had the Vadi.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bernice King the other day put up a tweet saying how she didn't appreciate how her father was being how he was being taken out of context. Basically,
taken out of context.
She clapped on these people.
Yeah, I saw that.
Out of context.
I saw that, but then you got Alveda King that's gonna come back and always defend the white conservatives, and for what they do, they don't even like Dr. King.
Right.
they just want to use content of character as a talking point, and they actually use it as an excuse to do nothing on policy and law to help black people. They actually use it's supposed to be content of character, so we can't come up with laws and policies that address racial disparities or income inequality through the prism of race. And
Right.
that's the dirty little secret about this whole critical race theory demonization, is that they are trying to turn public opinion against legislation and policy, rectifying the sins of America's past, and giving restitution, reparations to the victims of America's oppression that are Black people, the descendants of African slaves.
All right.
This is what the real agenda is behind demonizing any critical analysis of American law and American policy, which is specifically what critical race theory was created to do.
That's right.
It was you can think of it as created with reparations in mind, to document and expose the racial intersection of with American law, and how that led to systemic discrimination against Black people. We can talk about in housing. We can talk about in mortgages, in lending. We can talk about redlining. We can talk about the GI Bill. We can talk about any of these laws and policies. And once that is documented, now you have a case for reparations. And that's what they don't want. And they've been trying to dodge it and been trying to dismiss it ever since 1865. They've been trying since 1865. And they're going to continue to try unless we put a stop to them.
1 second. Brother Noah Williams, if you're still watching, check your inbox. Noah Williams, check your inbox. All right, go ahead.
This tweet, Bernice King, this is what we were talking about earlier. She says, I believe the fear mongering regarding CRT is intended to usher in the banning of any teaching of substance on the history of slavery and racism and on the current devastation of racism. And I oppose quoting my father to facilitate that fear and to usher in that banning.
Amen, sister.
You know, critical race theory, kind of to add to what you were saying, critical race theory, one of the things that's not talked about is why critical race theory, like why it came about in the first place. And it had to do with in the 70s, during this period, there was a lot of talk, actually from the 70s, actually moving into the 80s also. There was this talk about, that we were in basically the same thing that they did like right after the Civil War was over. Is, like back then how they said, well, racism is over, all the problems are solved. That's what they were saying in the 70s and in the 80s. They said, well, we didn't pass these laws. They said we're now in a post-racial society.
They've always said it.
It's
always been a lie.
Racism is over. We don't need these these laws and we don't need this affirmative action anymore. We don't need because again, the thinking of those certain people in the dominant society is that we pass laws, therefore we fix the problem.
But
critical race theory.
Yeah, but it's a little more.
The scholars in critical race theory said, well, yeah, you passed these laws, but it's still in effect. Let me show you how.
Well, it's a little more sinister than that, in my opinion. It's a little more sinister than that.
Right.
Yes, we passed these laws, so get over it. That's definitely the attitude.
Right.
But the real motive behind that attitude is to preserve the advantage.
Absolutely.
Advantage, and this is what we call white privilege.
Right.
It's that advantage that was bestowed upon white people over and against Black people as a result of generations of slavery, as a result of generations of Jim Crow and systemic discrimination in housing, in bank
put in
lending.
effect by laws and policy.
Put in effect by laws and policy, which is where critical race theory comes in, because it's a movement to document
Absolutely.
that intersection between law and policy and white racism, which is systemically baked into the systems of America, be it the legal system, be it the banking system, be it name your system.
That's why they're trying to pass state laws to outlaw you saying that you can't say that America is inherently racist.
All right. They don't want you to be able to say that, even though it's true. Even though it's true, say, well, America's not a racist country. Remember this big hubbub about is America a racist country? Right. And then even old Kamala came out. America's not a racist country. Out there with old Tim Scott. Timmy. Old Timmy Scott. Old Timmy Scott come out there. You know, they got to trot him out every now and then to do his part, make his contribution to preserve the advantage that has been afforded white people through generations of slavery and discrimination.
Well, to you guys' point too, I believe it's Texas, and I could be wrong, but they've issued some new curriculum, new historical revisionism. This is the new history class, American history class.
Yeah, they're so worried about critical race theory, though.
The teachers are not allowed to basically make moral judgments on what was immoral as far as race was concerned. I really should have looked this up, and I forgot all about it. But basically, you're not even allowed to marginalize the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan were patriots of some kind. So.
Right. Well,
I saw that somewhere.
And I'm gonna have to find it because I don't want to.
They believed that they were patriots, and when you're teaching it and explaining it to the students, you have to explain it from the perspective of the Klan and what they believed about themselves versus telling the truth about what they were. And they played the same trick with the Civil War.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
As it pertains to the Confederacy, as it pertains to Dixie. They were fighting for their rights. They were fighting for their culture. They were fighting for their state sovereignty. They look at it as, and this is a quote, the second American Revolution, because that's literally what they think it is. They think that it was the second American Revolution.
Right.
And so, you know, when we really look at this revisionist history, of course, lost cause, Confederate rhetoric has been with us for a long time. The lost cause rhetoric, which came from the organization, the United Daughters of the Confederacy, and how did they put all these things in the textbooks. Well, I was trying to explain to somebody, I was in a debate the other day, this is already in the textbooks, where they talk about Black slaves as being immigrants. It's already in the textbooks where they have stories about the kind slave master and about the slaves that were happy in their condition. You know, we already have that. So, you know, there doesn't need to be a new movement to give us that. What it is they don't want to lose that, because that helps push their advantage off the cliff.
Right. When
the younger generation decides to make change. And let me tell you what scared them most of all. When they looked at these protests on the news and they saw all of the young white folks out there protesting with the Black folks, that spooked them. That spooked them.
Right.
Because they said it's not the same as it was when they had the Ferguson protests. Not the same.
Young folk are learning.
And then when I was at that conference, they talked about how their kids came into church asking questions.
Exactly. There you go.
That was a big deal.
And that's what spooked them.
They wasn't ready for that.
And see,
that's what spooked them.
So now they're trying to control what young people are learning.
Right.
And what you were talking about too, Charles, that propaganda, that racist propaganda movie from the 1920s,
Birth of a Nation.
Birth of a Nation.
Yep.
The Klan was they made the Klan out to be heroes. Go ahead and play. You about to play that video?
I wanted to play this.
Play that, brother.
Of Bodie Bacham This is somebody that people need to keep their eyes on. This is
that's a slick dude, man. I didn't.
Yeah. This is a video from a while back. I'm probably show you a couple of videos of his, but this is where he slanders Dr. King. So let me see if I can.
Spiritual formation. What books or authors are currently informing your love for Christ and your walk of discipleship? So, Mike.
Actually, that's not it. I got to jump ahead. Hold on.
Okay.
I marked it. I think he says this around a 2-minute or something mark.
Yeah. His book and his sermon, and then his interview, his post-interview, all conflict.
This is about Dr. King. This is where he talks about Dr. King. Hold on. Let me see if this is it.
That dude is slick, man.
What is the best approach of a family that is split in doctrine between the husband and wife?
No.
Where young children are involved, in order to maintain that cohesive family?
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Oh, that's all right.
We have to believe
that's when he was fat.
Doing what God said.
That's big voting.
Yeah.
Big voted like you got Big Luther and Little Luther.
Right.
That's big voting and little voting.
Where did he lied on Dr. King? I gotta find that. I'm so sorry. I can't find where he said that.
That's all right. We know that it's on that discussion. So
I'll tell you what.
We have to believe doing what God says.
No, actually, you know what? This isn't even the right video.
Okay.
Let me go back. Here it is right here.
Well, with greatest respect, thank you for all you do. And would you address what Christians should do and be in response to the condition of America today?
Okay, let me jump ahead to where it's somewhere around the 2-minute mark. Here it is right here, because I remember when he did his fingers like that. Okay.
Let me say this as well, that from the perspective of the home and from the perspective of education.
That's not it. He is around the 2-minute mark. Hold on.
Theology to a man by the name of Barack.
Because he talked about Barack Obama too.
Theology faithfully for a long time. And for 20 years, he taught that neo-Marxist black.
Okay,
here we go. There's old Bodie.
Here he is. Okay, here we go.
And the establishment of a socialistic.
Okay, here he goes. This is
secular human worldview. And we've seen the fruit of that. But let me tell you another thing, not just our home and our education, but there was a man who has a monument now in Washington, D.C. That man was a neo-Marxist and a socialist and a pastor and a tremendous orator. And his name was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Wow.
He was wrong on the gospel, and he was wrong on worldview as a liberal Marxist socialist.
Okay,
but he left a tremendous legacy.
All right, so he
slapped
him down a couple of times. Didn't want to come back and try. So
he called him a Marxist.
What a disgrace to his race.
This is actually very instructive because this ties directly to the issues that he's having with around the book that he wrote called Fault Lines, which talks about critical race theory. And this is an example of how this is something I observed going way back. This video came out in December 2020, but I've been watching Vodi Bakum. I've had my eye on this guy since 2007, 2008. I saw him kind of coming up on the rise back then. I saw him. He started coming on the scene in the middle 2000s. He was one of these guys who, if you remember, like when the emergent church movement, like Mark Driscoll and all them people.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that emergent.
Yeah, I remember that
going on. Then you had some people responding to this because emergent church movement was kind of like, basically, people were saying it was kind of going left, which it was kind of in some ways, but he was one of these people. It was like a cadre of, what do you want to say? Calvinist or conservative leaning type preachers, Southern Baptists who were responding to this movement. And again, that ties that emergent church movement thing also kind of ties into this whole wokeness, this whole war. So they've been kind of warring against, these different ideas for a long time. And Vodi Bakum kind of emerged. He kind of came on the scene around that time. So I've been watching him. And then, but I have seen him several times make statements, make claims about things that are inaccurate.
Yeah.
And when you try to correct him or when you challenge him, he's very arrogant, in my opinion.
Of course.
He will not, admit that he's wrong about anything. Even when he's clearly wrong. Like this is an example where he's clearly wrong about Dr. King.
But he doesn't care that he's clearly wrong.
Right.
Because he is repeating and regurgitating what the white evangelicals who finance him and program him have taught him to think. So he's the typical black ventriloquist dummy of white nationalist evangelicals. And what a shame. It should give any black man pause when you open your mouth and what comes out about Dr. King is the same thing that the people that wanted him dead in the 60s said about it. I mean, it should give you pause as a black man to be in agreement with those people. But I mean, but that's the circles that he runs in, white evangelicals. So, I mean, nothing is surprising about, as I call him, old Vodi. I call him, whether we talking about old Vodi on the religious side or whether we talking about old Timmy Scott on the political side, we always have our sellouts.
Right. There are lots of videos on YouTube where he's been talking about critical race theory. This is kind of how he looks now. The brother apparently has had some cardiac issues. I'm 53 years old. I think he is a year younger than me. I think he might be 51 or 52.
And you were talking about
voting. He looked like Frederick Douglass in that photo.
The brother is he's not in good shape. He has some. I'm not saying this, as if to say he deserves what he gets, but I'm just saying, he's been having some issues, but he's still running. He's still running around the country doing all this speaking. On critical race theory when he really needs to be at the house. He needs to be kind of taking it easy.
Yeah, take it easy, Vodi.
Because he got some serious issues, but I guess he's at the house on this video. I guess.
Yeah, it looks like he's at the house. I was about to say, but apparently sent out by the Heritage
Foundation.
He
does travel. He does travel quite a bit, talking about critical race theory and talking about his book.
Yeah, I see that Heritage Foundation there at the bottom of the video.
Oh yeah, you see that? Yeah. I wanted to point that out. Yeah.
So in the last,
definitely been recruited by the Heritage Foundation.
In the last interview, Kevin, he was explaining that some of the things that he was accused of plagiarizing, and that he didn't quote those things, and he was not saying those things, and yada yada yada. I don't know if you remember that specifically, but can you speak on that? Because I don't have the video queued.
Right.
And on that note, brothers, I got to run. I got to go to a training.
Okay, all right,
man. But hey, I enjoyed it. Live as always. Love
Appreciate
both
you,
of you brothers. Keep up the good work, and we'll talk to you later. Be blessed.
Absolutely, man. You be blessed. So your question was about this controversy about his book, Fault Lines.
Yeah, when he got on that, when he got in trouble. Well, I won't say trouble, but he got called out.
Right.
So he went and did the interview.
I was kind of following this because I read Vodi Bakum. I read his book when it first came out in, let's see, it came out in, I want to say it came out in February, and I read it like kind of shortly thereafter, like when it came out. And I remember kind of just observing social media and Twitter or whatnot, that some people had begun to do reviews of his book. And one of the first people to do a really serious, thorough review was this guy named Marty Duran. And I've got his blog up here. And so I saw him on Twitter. I was like, let me see what he's saying. So he did this 2-part review of Vodi Bakum's book. And his book called Fault Lines of Social Justice Movement and Evangelicalism's Looming Catastrophe. And so if you're interested, so this is a very thorough review, and it goes through, and this is one of the first reviews where it talked about how Vodi Bakum apparently, plagiarized some of the writings, how he, there were several, factual errors. And he so he kind of goes through, one of the criticisms. Another thing is how Charles mentioned earlier about one of the criticisms of critical race theory is that it, they try to say that it's basically that it is a form of Marxism, that it promotes Marxist communist ideology.
Oh, he also accused Delgado of saying something that Delgado said I never said, and you can't find any writing of Delgado.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So he misquotes people. He misrepresents what people says. He presents certain things in a false light. So this is like one review that kind of, and then so after that, there were some other reviews that were done of this book. So apparently, it was time to go into damage control mode, and he ended up having to do a couple of interviews and whatnot with his publisher to kind of deal with this issue. And there's actually a YouTube video on here somewhere where he kind of deals with that. I can't find it at the moment, but he actually he had to actually go on a radio show, kind of go on camera and deal with these criticisms point by point. And it wasn't a good look. So he's actually out there. He's still actually out here having to defend his work right now, as a matter of fact. But yeah, so that's kind of what's been going on with him. Is so he, and I think as early as last week, he's been defending his work, and he's been basically saying that the criticisms of his work are not really substantive. He has an explanation for various things. But my view is if you have a PhD or a doctorate level degree, and you put some work out there, I got a master's level, and like when I did, I had to do, anybody that's done a master's level studies, you have to do, there's like a research component. You have to do some type of serious writing, or not even in master's level, even in bachelor's, in undergrad, when you write a research paper,
right,
you gotta cite, your sources. You got to make sure, then they got this program now called Turnitin or whatever, so they scan it, make sure they plagiarizing, and you gotta be on your P's and Q's, and as I pointed out earlier, the video where he essentially slandered Dr. King, calling Dr. King a Marxist or a socialist. Well, apparently he didn't do his homework in that case to see where Dr. King preached against Marxism, where Dr. King preached against socialism. I mean, I can pull up the book he wrote, with the various writings where he discusses these things in detail. Now, if I can do that and find that out in 5 minutes, why is a guy with a doctorate level degree, why can't he find that out, right?
Because it's a part of the propaganda.
Exactly.
Because the one of the very last speeches Dr. King gave was on reparations.
Absolutely. He
And
sure did.
so that makes perfect sense. He wants to demonize Dr. King.
And so when, carry that forward. And like I said, I watched him a long time. I've seen him do things. I've seen him be sloppy like this. And now he's written a book on this critical race.
This will come back to bite him now, huh?
Same sloppiness. And then he doesn't seem to, like I said, and then you challenge him, he.
But it seems to me, and help me, because I know we talked about this last year, or maybe I don't know if it was last year or earlier this year. Certain popular evangelicals like John MacArthur and some other ones, and some apologists out there, just coming hard and heavy against quote unquote social justice. Remember that. Trying to quell any discussion on racial inequality inside or outside the church. It doesn't matter. Definitely not police brutality or any of that stuff. And, remember sermons from Dr. MacArthur, saying we shouldn't be protesting the police, or we shouldn't be protesting this or that. And, we shouldn't be talking about it in the church. We should be just whatever and kumbaya, right?
Right.
And I'm like, well, so at what point do you address those issues, or basically what it sounds like to me is like, don't bring that to us.
Right.
When you come here, we don't want to talk about that. Don't bring that to us. You come here and put on a smiley face. And if I had a church leader like that, I would get up and leave right in the middle of that sermon. I mean, that's just me, but because you're so dismissive of our feelings and what we're going through, as and how we're being treated. We're your brothers, allegedly your brothers in Christ, and this is how you show us you care about us, and so if I don't, some brothers of other different ethnicities are suffering or going through something, I'm not going to be dismissive of their plight. Hey, if there's something that I can do to actually help alleviate that problem, or if there's some way I can lend to making things better for them, I'll do that. Even if it's just being an ear.
Right.
But the last thing you should want to do is shut them down and say, really, well, it's not in the Bible, so we're not going to talk about it. Huh? I don't understand what kind of Christians are those, man.
Well, what's very interesting to me is when I was at that conference I told you about, where they were talking about critical race theory. Not once, and I heard every speaker, and nobody mentioned anything about the Bible or about the scriptures, anything. They only thing they talked about, it was almost like, I told somebody, I actually tweeted it while I was there.
More like a political conference, wasn't it?
I said, if I close my eyes right now and listen, I would think that I was at a white power, a white nationalist conference, because that was the talk. The talk was they were talking about how this was a threat to, basically a threat to white identity, how their take on everything related to critical race theory, wokeness, whatever, is that is attacking white people. This is a threat to, basically a threat. This is what they were saying. Yeah. They didn't say anything that it was a threat to the gospel. They didn't say they didn't even reference the scriptures at all. It was basically a white power conference.
It was a threat to power.
Right. And in this entire even Vodi Bakum in his book, and when all these the discussions that I see him take place on social media or wherever he is, he never talks about what critical race theory or any of this stuff has to do with the Bible, because it doesn't have anything to do with the Bible. It's not it's not even a critique of religion at all. There's
So
not.
that begs the question: why is he all up in it?
Right. So so it has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with Jesus, or it has nothing to do with any religion. But somehow they have convinced themselves that this stuff, for some reason, is a threat to
the power structure,
their faith.
Yeah, but like you said, they didn't explain how it evolves their faith, right?
Right.
They didn't explain. Go ahead.
And I was just saying, it's just another iteration of the culture wars that's been going on,
right?
Which is linked to politics. This has nothing to do with the evangelicals' involvement in this whole debate. Has nothing to do with
the church,
or the mission of the church.
No,
it's only about politics and maybe your frustration with possibly having to do something, instead of just standing in the pulpit or just going to the church building every Sunday and just sitting and listening to a sermon, or being, participating, in the various ministries within the four walls or within the quote unquote campus, and not having to interact with the real world.
Right.
Which a lot of these these issues that critical race theory talks about, and then the other things that are not related to critical race theory, but that they like to throw in, like social justice, for example. If you want to take individual issues like police brutality, or various types of inequality, the role of government, these different, a lot of these things. For years, the evangelical church have had a great run for, I want to say, the last 40, 50 years or so. They've had a great run, being involved in politics.
Mm-hmm.
They have claimed, for the most part, that I've heard them say, we're supposed to be salt and light. That we're basically we're going to take over, America for God, right? So they have
taken by force.
Exactly. They have clearly, you're talking about the moral majority, all these different movements. They have clearly, what
part of the gospel is that?
Right. They have clearly made it a point that part of being a Christian is being involved in politics and being involved in making a transforming society
and controlling the government, basically controlling the government.
And now that other people, their kids are challenging them to be involved in certain ways, well, now it's a problem. Now we don't want to be involved in that.
Right. And so now they're like, okay, where are our kids learning this? Oh, we got
right. They're learning this. They're telling them this in the schools.
They learning too much truth. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
so
and then,
go ahead. What's really interesting is that they really think that that the kids go to school and like the teachers just I don't know,
unload on them.
I don't know what they really think happens in school.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of kids either they learn from other kids who are outside of their their regular social network, and then they learn, and then they got the World Wide Web. I mean, they can learn whatever they want to learn. Can't nobody stop them. So I don't get it.
My thing is, if what it shows that you don't have confidence in what, in what you believe and what you're teaching, because if the gospel is so powerful, and I'm not saying that it's not. I'm just saying if the gospel, if your message from that you preach at your church, your principles, your doctrine is so powerful, then.
But the problem is
why should it should be able to stand against what anybody's being taught in school, what's being taught in college. Right. It is just funny to me how they think, especially about when your kids go off to university.
Right.
All this good teaching that they got for decades in your house and in your church, and their argument is that they send their kids to college, and in 1 year's time, the college has totally undone what they've been taught all their lives.
And you know why? And we know why, because they're not teaching the fundamentals of the basic fundamentals of Christianity. That's the reason why kids are getting lost when they go off to college. Right. But the other problem is they're also afraid because they're preaching a different gospel. Mm-hmm. They're not preaching the gospel of the Bible. They're preaching American exceptionalism. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's not the gospel. That's not, Jesus doesn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that is the new gospel. That's the gospel of modern American evangelicalism right now.
Right. But so we can say for a fact that CRT is not the 1619 project.
Nope.
And although the 1619 project is very educational, it's not that. CRT is not even social justice. I mean, CRT is, like you said, it's a critical analysis of all the systems.
Right.
And
it's primarily focused. It's legal. It's a legal research.
And people can come if you critically analyze it, you'll come away with your own understanding, but you're really going to come to one conclusion. So I don't,
the other thing with critical race theory is not only is it a tool for analysis, but it is also with a view to coming up with solutions to the problem. Right. So it also looks at solutions.
I got to play a little more of this clip. Give me 1 second here, because I just want to play the end. I ain't gonna play the whole thing, but if you guys want to see the whole entire interview, it is Utah State Representative Steve Christensen with Mark Lamont Hill on BNC Network. It's on YouTube. It's a doozy. The guy can't even answer where he read CRT. He can't give any answers, but he's an expert on it. Let me see if we can close with some of this.
Making it a problem, but then we're also lumping it under critical race theory. To ask you a more specific question, just because I want to get your response to this. What leads you to believe that critical race theory argues racial superiority?
Well, obviously, when you study those who are significant writers in support of critical race theory and who are defining critical race theory, that's what they write about. That's clearly what they write about. Ibram X. Kendi, and the list goes on. Okay.
So that's a great point. So two things. One, Ibram X. Kendi does not identify as a critical race theorist, and in none of his writings does he say that one race is inherently superior to another. If you have an example of that, I'd love to hear it. But you said critical race theory, and the list goes on. Have you read critical race theory?
Yes. Yes.
What
You're talking about the
theory have you read?
Teachings of Herbert Marcuse and others.
Who?
Herbert Marcuse wrote and published before critical race theory was founded. Herbert Marcuse is not a critical race theorist. He was not a scholar of race theory and never identified, nor is he identified with the critical race canon. Why would you identify someone like Herbert Marcuse with critical race theory? Or better yet, what Herbert Marcuse writing did you read that was about critical race theory?
Well, to answer your first question, obviously Herbert Marcuse, who came from Germany, studied in the Frankfurt School of Critical Theory. He obviously was an adherent to critical theory. And then after he came in 1934 to the United States, Columbia University, fast forward 1970s, he essentially became one of the founders of critical race theory. One of his
so obvious,
of course, Angela Davis, and then very
Angela Davis,
Ibram X. Kendi, just identifying Angela Davis as someone that he looks to as kind of an outspoken role model for critical race theory here in the United States.
What?
With all due respect, almost nothing that you said there was factually accurate. First, you said he studied in the Frankfurt School. The Frankfurt School isn't an actual school that you study in, right? So
that's right.
You do understand that, but I'm assuming that was just a slip of the tongue. But I'll give you grace there. But then you say he comes to the United States, and he had as a student Angela Davis, who also is not a critical race theorist and hasn't written on critical race theory. And then you said that Marcuse trained Angela Davis, who inspired Ibram X. Kendi. Angela Davis has inspired many of us. That doesn't make everyone who's inspired by Angela Davis a critical race theory. Aretha Franklin was inspired by him and wasn't. But I have to run. But again, you said you read Marcuse. I only have 30 seconds. What Herbert Marcuse text did you read that was about critical race theory?
Yeah, I think there are so many questions that we need to continue to get into. I would appreciate another opportunity.
No, but this is just a single question. What Herbert Marcuse reading did you read? Just a single question, though, sir. What did you read about? What Herbert Marcuse text is about critical race theory?
Don't remember the name.
Okay, you make for a great student. Representative, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time. Be sure to join the conversation here, everybody. We want to hear from you as well.
Goodness.
Head over to our BNC.
Hey,
that was bad.
Hey, what's up, brother? Antonio joined us here.
What's up? You know Mark Lamont Hill. He has a very interesting backstory. I don't know if you know this or not. Are you familiar with the Nuwaubians? You remember that? It was like a cult, they were like these Moors. Like it was like one of those Moors groups.
Oh, that I'm not familiar.
Nuwaubians. They got like a pyramid. Here in Georgia, I think the leader, I can't remember what his name was. He was caught up in this scandal where he was it York? Malachi York? I think that was his name.
Malachi York in New York.
Yeah. So Mark Lamont Hill, when he was like a teenager, he was like a young guy. He was in that.
Oh, he was in that cult.
He was in that cult. He was close to Malachi York. Matter of fact, he talks about how he walked in on Malachi York when he had some little children around him.
Oh my God. Well,
yeah.
So I'm glad he got out of that.
So it was very interesting. So Mark Lamont Hill was in that.
Yeah, I had to read up on that. Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that it was in.
Yeah, he's very interesting.
What's up, brother Antonio? What you got to say, brother?
What's up, Antonio?
Hey, Kevin. Hey, Jay.
What's happening?
Yeah, I'm just getting off work. How much did I miss?
Man, we pretty much covered all the bases. Charles came in here, did a quick hit.
Yeah,
got out of here, but.
Yeah, one of the things and Kevin drove it home is Brother Vody in his book on CRT, and then how Vody got called out for plagiarism and basically also for just making up stuff, like he did with Delgado, and then he turned around and said, well, he didn't do that, but then he was preaching a sermon. Which I didn't play the sermon, but Brother Matthew Jackson and some other guys were playing a sermon where he was just going in about how he you know, how all these things were true, blase, right? So anyway, yeah, Kevin was just going through some of the history of what Vody has done and said. And I didn't know that Vody threw Dr. King under the bus. So that was nasty, man. Basically called Dr. King. He could basically on a panel with some other evangelicals. He called Dr. King a Marxist and a socialist and a whole bunch of other names. So I won't. It was pretty bad. Yeah.
Yeah. So just to kind of give you an idea how big this thing was, you know, here's an article from the Washington Post, August 3rd. You know, the Washington Post ain't no little newspaper.
Mm-mm.
And the religion writer, he's writing here, headlines, Vody Baucham's publisher defends fault lines against plagiarism's claims. So the Salem books, yeah, I'm familiar with Salem books. So this article talks about how, let me see how much detail it goes into. It's citing the different blog posts where they've kind of reviewed his work and the various people who wrote blog posts, wrote reviews, and cited in detail the different issues with his books, accusing him of fabricating statements, falsely attributing statements to Robert Delgado, who is one of the foundational thinkers in critical race theory, how he apparently plagiarized the work of an atheist author named James Lindsay, who I'm familiar with.
An atheist, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's actually kind of buddy with him, actually, to be honest with you. So this article, goes into some detail about. So this wasn't just something that just was a little small deal. It was apparently a big deal, and it made the Washington Post. So people have been talking about it, but I saw this bubbling up, early, right after his book came out. I saw people on social media who had said, "Hey, I like Vody, but there's some issues in this book. There's some issues. I don't know about this. I don't know." I saw it bubbling up.
See, but you know what? What? God is good and God is real, because you keep on messing around, you're gonna get exposed.
Yeah.
And he's also been criticizing Brother Pastor Tony Evans, who from time to time preach on these issues.
I thought they were cool though.
When I say criticize, I mean criticize the things that Pastor Tony has taught. Basically, when it comes down to race, I'm not saying he's personally. No.
Oh yeah.
So recently, he's come at Tony Evans about some recent sermons Tony did about regarding race in the church and whatnot.
I see.
So yeah.
I see. Well, all I can say, we touched on it earlier, is he, in my opinion, he's being used, or he has yielded himself to be used, or maybe he knows he's being used. He doesn't care, but they need the anti-CRT movement, as well as the culture wars at large. They need certain black faces in place. They need a Dr. Thomas Sowell. They need a Dr. Ben Carson. They need a Vody Baucham. They need certain people in certain positions to say certain things. And Vody Baucham happens to be that black man that they need, that black voice that they need. They just like Candace Owens occupies a certain space. Right. Vody Baucham occupies a space for them. But Vody Baucham thinks he's doing it for God.
Yeah. And that's in a nutshell, Brother Tony. What are your thoughts?
Well, like I said, I'm not real well versed, but it's interesting you said that he accused he came against Martin Luther King, because that's I ain't even heard. I never even heard John MacArthur. Most people they'll criticize the Martin Luther Kings of today, but yet they'll praise Martin Luther King
of yesterday. Yeah.
right. But he taking it another stuff. He actually going for Martin Luther King himself.
Yeah,
So
he's going for Dr. King's head. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, that threw me for a loop when he you didn't hear that video I played, did you, Antonio?
I caught the last part of it when Mark
Okay.
was asking him to cite some book, but he couldn't do it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's so yeah, man. So in short, CRT is not what
it's not Marxism.
it's not what evangelicals are pushing.
It's not Marxism. It is not saying that all white people are racist. It's not.
It doesn't even deal with individuals. It's dealing with the system. Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Dealing with institutions.
define Marxism. What exactly is Marxism?
You know what?
See, that would have to be a whole class we have to get into. But it's a type of economy, and it's also a form of government. But one of the main features of Marxism is, in short, the philosophy of Karl Marx with respect to government and economics.
Right.
I'm just to keep it simple. That's what Marxism
is. And they call him Marxism because he I guess supports some form of socialism,
right?
Whatnot.
So Marxism, communism, socialism. They are distinct. But sometimes when people talk about them, especially people that are trying to scare people or they're trying to engage in propaganda, they kind of use these terms interchangeably. Like for example, anytime a Democrat politician proposes something or whatever, or it doesn't even have to be a Democrat. You hear somebody cry socialism, right? Well, what they're talking about 9 times out of 10 has nothing to do with socialism, right? And there are other terms that will more accurately describe what they're talking about, but it's not socialism. But people just love to throw terms around, and they don't know. Just like people don't know what CRT means, and I'm not saying this from a standpoint as if I know everything, because I'm still kind of hazy on some of this stuff. But I'm just trying to make a point that in the same way that people don't know what critical race theory is, they also don't know what Marxism is. They don't know what socialism is. And they really don't even know what democracy is, to be honest with you, for the most part. I mean, the average person is not really well versed in this stuff.
No. And even in Marxism, I'm reading from the Britannica, it says the thought of Karl Marx. The written work of Marx cannot be reduced to a philosophy, much less to a philosophical system.
Right.
The whole of his work is a radical critique of philosophy, especially of GWF Hegel's idealist system and of the philosophies of the left and right post-Hegelians, however you pronounce that. So
Hegel,
Hegel, yeah. So basically, it's more complicated.
Dialectical method.
Yeah, it's more complicated than people like to simplify it and say, "Oh, use a Marxist." Then I guarantee you, if you ask them what Marxism means, half of them probably don't even know.
Right,
Antonio. they're not as open as an open book like you. You'll say, "Hey, I don't know what it is. What is it?" So
I don't even know if we answered your question, but it's basic. Long and short of it is too much to get into, and plus we kind of don't really know either.
But what it is not CRT.
But did Karl Marx ever talk about like race and oppression and all of that type of stuff?
one of the main concepts in Marxism is this idea of you have this it's centered around class struggle, right? So you have this this notion that and I could be totally wrong about this. I'm just going off of what I remember, but you have this concept of a proletariat, which is the worker, and the bourgeoisie, which is the ruling class, right? The ruling class and the people who kind of like own the means of production, you know, basically the captains of industry, you know, the money people.
Okay.
And it talks about this tension between the working class and basically the ruling class, and how eventually that it will lead to some type of conflict, some type of where the proletariat or the workers are going to overthrow, you know, the ruling class, and basically end up creating this kind of utopian society, this utopian economy, utopian society where everybody has, you know, what they need, right? Where the government or the people or the government kind of like owns the means of production and make sure that people get food, you know, make sure people have what they need, right? So I'm kind of oversimplifying it. So as a contrast
to capitalism,
to capitalism is, you know, that you know you have the concept of rugged individualism, you have free markets, you have and I as a red-blooded American, I can go out here, I can start a business, and when the government can stay out of my way, and I can make a living for my family, and I can make as much money as I want to. And you know, the ideal state is that the government is staying out of my way and let me do my thing.
Yeah, the government's out of my way unless I need a government loan or contract.
Right. So anytime, so when you hear people crying about socialism here in America, or how socialism is encroaching in on it, they're pushing back against any attempt of government to regulate. So like any type of government regulation, you know, they're gonna cry socialism. Anything that prevents companies from getting too big and taking over, you know, having monopolies, you know, a lot of the businesses, if they had their way, you know, they'd be able to buy up everything. But the government said, no, you can't do that. You know, they cry socialism. So anytime the government kind of gets involved in trying to make things more fair, right?
Okay.
They identify any type of action like that from the government, any government intervention, or any attempt to make things more fair, they're gonna cry socialism, even though it's not socialism, but they're gonna cry that. So,
and yeah, so we basically, and when we first started, we talked about how CRT has become the new boogeyman, the new political football. Out of nowhere, CRT's been around for a long time, but now all of a sudden it's the political football. It's not taught in schools. It's not taught in grade school or high school. But
what they do say though, I'm sorry to finish answering your question, Antonio. The link that they are making with critical race theory to Marxism, you know, earlier I mentioned how it's about class struggle, how you have the workers against the ruling class, right? This tension. Well, they're saying that critical race theory now is taking that same paradigm, except that they are substituting race. So now they're saying, instead of the tension being between these two, the workers and the ruling class, they're saying the tension now is between white people and non-white people.
Okay.
And they're saying that the critical race theory is basically teaching this concept that basically that white people have to be, or the influence of white people, or the dominance that white people have in society has to be overthrown. That's what they claim, that critical race theory, or that's what's being taught in the schools to their children. That's why they're crying about critical race theory. But critical race theory does not teach that.
Okay.
But that's what they're saying.
Nor is it being taught to their children in school.
So they're crying about something that's not even being taught.
No, it's just a political football.
It's a political. It's an engineered propaganda campaign. When we talked about that earlier, we talked about who's behind it: Heritage Foundation, these different think tanks, these political think tanks, these political organizations are behind. Basically, the Heritage Foundation is the main force behind it, and it's all about getting the evangelical base riled up, and thereby, firming up the conservative Republican base.
Right. And prior to CRT, it was
social justice.
Well, I was gonna say defund the police.
Defund the police. It was Black Lives Matter. Anti-Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And on the religious side, they were going against liberation theology was the boogeyman.
Dr. Seuss.
Dr. Seuss. Yeah.
Kermit the Frog and whoever else. I mean, anything they can latch on to. Christmas not being taught. Christmas not being allowed. I don't know where that came from.
Before that, it was Colin Kaepernick taking the knee.
Right.
Anything that is, that has to do with any type of Black liberation, Black freedom, or civil rights, anything along that line, anything that's too Black, they're gonna slap a label on it. They're gonna say, it's social justice's fault. They're gonna say, well, it's Black Lives Matter fault. It's the Marxist fault. It's the communist fault. But they've been crying about the communists. Man, for like 75, almost 100 years, they've been blaming the communists for stuff.
And they do more than
they blame the communists for the civil rights movement.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say, as far as doing damage across the globe, they do more than communists, don't they?
What's going on right now in Afghanistan?
I don't know. That whole 20-year occupation. Iraq.
There's a lot of contributing factors on that, but
Yeah. And so that's pretty much what that is, Antonio. Any closing thoughts?
No. How long when I can watch like the replay of it, or where would I find it?
It's on my page. It should replay as soon as.
Yeah, it's all posted on my page too. So there'll be a link.
As soon as this is over, it should replay.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, it takes a few minutes for it to whatever. Man, I ain't gonna lie, man. Let me get some shout outs, man. Shout out to Brother Berean, man. Him and the Hebrew Israelites and other apologists, man, they've been going at it, man. And the other day, man, I ain't lied, they was on there for 8 hours. I went to work, they had started.
Are you serious?
When I got off of work, they was still on. It was 10 hours, man. And I was joking. I got on the page and I just started joking. I said, man, y'all been on here for 10 hours and then they noticed what I said.
Wow, man.
But they've been having some great discussions though, and I know this is kind of off topic, but my thoughts on that is I could care less who claims to be a Hebrew or a Jew or whatever. If you believe you're a Jew, fine. My question is, what do you believe your salvation is tied to?
Amen.
And if your salvation is tied to anything other than Jesus, then we having a whole different conversation, So and that goes with any Jew, no matter what color. I tell the same thing to Jews in Israel. I don't believe that they have a special covenant. There's only one covenant. the old covenant is gone, is been fulfilled, and now we have a new covenant. And if you don't accept the new covenant, what did Jesus? Jesus basically said, if you reject him, you reject his Father. So it doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter what you claim to be. I could care less. If you can prove you're Hebrew, that's great, fine, and all that. What do you believe? So, but they've been having some great conversations, man. I'm off topic. It's just been wild keeping up with some of that stuff. And shout out to them. And brother, like I said, brother Matthew Jackson, taking care of family business, can join us tonight. And we'll be able to have some more conversations. I don't think this is the end of Voddie's trials and tribulations, CRT. So I think we'll be able to probably have some more more analysis and conversation about this going on, and whoever else decides to pick up the baton from him. Who do you see? Who do you see trying to do that, Kevin? I don't think somebody said Thomas Sowell is an atheist.
He is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't see him getting involved in this. What's the other guy's? What's the other guy's name? I can't forget his name. You got Sowell and you got the other guy.
You talking about Walter Williams?
No, not Walter Williams. No. And I'm definitely not talking about Jesse Lee Peterson, if anybody was wondering. So,
Lord, please, not him.
He's on.
Not Alan Keyes. Alan Keyes ain't been on the scene in a minute.
No, he's on Sowell's level, and I always forget his name.
Yeah.
The two are always paired up when they need to go to some black conservative intellectuals, they go running.
Well, I know Walter Williams now. He died last year. You talking about Walter Williams that he used to sit in for Rush Limbaugh?
No.
Black professor?
No. There's Thomas and the other guy. It'll come back to me after we get off of this live. So it always worked that way. But yeah, you guys hit the head on the nail when they need a quote unquote black face to slap on something. They go find the right person, and
that's the role. That's the role he fulfills, whether he knows it or not.
Yeah, and I'm laughing because I've posted a video earlier. Candace Owens mad, and she's trying to pull her black card now because
really?
She wrote a book, and the book company, the publisher, I don't know, the editor of the publisher or whatever, decided to pull it because it's racist.
I blocked her, so I don't know what's
so she's hot as a firecracker, and she start going off about how dare this white editor suppress a black woman. So she's trying to rile black people up to support him. Like, no, Candace, you done left the reservation, and you done nuked the reservation, and you done fired rockets at the reservation.
Publishers.
We ain't got
Candace having a problem with her publisher. Voddie having a problem with his.
Well, and it ain't like the publisher that's lying. I'm gonna post that in a messenger. What that video I was talking about concerning Candace, I'll post that in the messenger.
Oh,
so y'all can check it out. It's funny. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. I know Salam had posted earlier, and he said the Heritage Foundation financially supports PBS. I know that political PACs and political organizations and corporations, they give to both sides of the aisle. So I don't know if that really means anything or not. But
I don't know what that's supposed to mean. They love to say that PBS is a
liberal.
That's part of the culture wars too. The war against PBS.
Yeah.
It's funny because that started when I don't know if you know Tucker Carlson's daddy was a man named Dick Carlson.
Okay.
He was a reporter. He was a banker for a little while, but he was a CEO. He was in charge of like Voice of America or something like that. But he was also in charge of PBS. He was like a CEO or something of PBS at the time when these culture wars against PBS kind of started. and they wanted him. That was like their man. I think he was under Reagan, but he was in place. He was, and I guess the conservatives kind of wanted him to basically, chop PBS off at the knees. And he was like, look, I'm not doing it. He told his own people, the conservatives, that, this anger and the stuff that's misdirected at PBS, basically y'all need to leave PBS alone. So, and he protected PBS. He didn't cut their funding or anything. So, but they've been going against PBS for a long time.
What's with evangelicals and conservatives in general with all this counsel culture? They always accusing others of trying to be, counseling each other, but they always forever been trying to counsel somebody.
I think they originated it.
Yeah. What'd you say, Antonio?
Yeah, I'm with you.
You're breaking up, brother.
I think you're breaking up.
Always
Okay.
canceling stuff.
Yeah, you broke up, Antonio.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm driving. I was saying, yeah, they always canceling stuff.
Yeah, always counseling somebody, always trying to get somebody counseled, but then play victim and cry, somebody's trying to counsel us. I mean, hey, you reap what you sow, that's what, you're always out trying to counsel other people, that's going to come back at you, but it's just funny to me. They're always trying to counsel PBS, counsel this, counsel that, if you don't like this stuff, there's a lot of stuff I don't like. I don't even watch.
Right.
And nobody's going to force me to watch it, I can complain about this TV show or that TV show. I think that TV show is whatever, what I'm saying? I'm not going to watch it.
Right.
But I was going to go on the campaign to bang on them and say, hey, I think the network should take them down because I don't like it.
Right.
I don't get them, but anyway, I'm not trying to get them. But anyway, yeah, your final thoughts, Antonio, we're going to get out of here.
Oh, no, I'm just going to watch the broadcast.
Okay. Okay, brother. Well, we appreciate everybody watching, and you all have a great rest of your evening. We appreciate it, and thank you very much.